Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. We're Watch Out for Fireballs. How many people here know who we are before they showed up? Yeah, that's very sweet.
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And some people are here who don't, by process of elimination. They're just kind of taking a chance on us. Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think you'll know quickly whether it's good. Yeah, so you might hate it, and it won't hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
If you leave, don't slam the door. Like, don't say why you're leaving.
Don't do like a Jerry Maguire and say, who's coming with me?
Yeah, please don't coach. If you have your own panel, please, sir, earn your own audience. We worked 7 years for this, so don't take this from us.
It's our big shot.
Yeah, this is our shot at the big one. So we're gonna, we record these and we put these out as well, so we're gonna open the show like we're doing the live podcast, which means I'll say my name, Kole will say his name.
We can just do it, we don't have to tell them.
No, but I'm going to tell them to make a noise. So
Okay,
thing.
yeah.
No, I know.
Okay.
And then we'll introduce the show, and then when we say like what you're listening, what it is and stuff, you guys can make noise so then it shows up on the recording.
Yeah.
And it'll sound like we're big shots. Everybody clap for two. If you clap on your legs, it's the equivalent of two people clapping. So just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast. Welcome to the weirdest episode we've ever done. So Kole, what do we usually do? Who are we?
Well, we are a Games Club podcast, which is what everybody who came to the booth heard us say many, many times. Usually we play a game front to back, then talk about it front to back. Even at these live shows, we pick a game that is participation friendly. And we tried to do that this time. Mm-hmm. But plans changed.
Yeah, we decided, so the original idea was to do Smash Brothers. Fighting games work well for this format. There's not tons of lore. We could talk about that stuff. We realized when we were preparing for the show, neither of us like playing Smash Brothers against other people. And that's the main way people play Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
So we could have gotten somebody who is very good at competitive Smash Brothers and asked them questions and done kind of an interview. But we kind of decided we enjoy it. Just because we don't play this game right doesn't mean we enjoy it less.
Right, we still have a good amount of fun with it.
Yeah, we follow the series. I think I own all of them that have come out. Like, I like the series. So that made us think, what does it mean to play a game wrong? Does it matter? What does it mean to play a game right? And started thinking in those lines. So this episode is going to kind of be an experiment that's a little bit more of an editorial than an actual examination of a particular game. So
yeah.
So what does it mean to play a game wrong?
Well, to play a game right means that a game's designer has an intended way for you to engage with it. They have laid out a series of things for you to do, and there's a contract between you and that designer as a player that you do exactly what they say, right?
Well, there's that, or the player base decides that there is a way for you to play the game, as is the case with Smash Brothers. Obviously, Nintendo has included a single-player campaign in a lot of those games, but the player base, there's a way that it is played.
Yep.
And we're here to tell you that that is a fake idea.
Yeah, there is no contract.
There is no contract. It is invisible. It doesn't exist. There are no game police. No one's going to stop you from playing however you like. And there are a bunch of different examples of this, and everyone does this all the time. And anyone who tries to stop you is a gatekeeping asshole, and they shouldn't.
Yes. Also, we swear on this show.
Fuck yeah, we do.
Yes, we do. So this goes back, a long ways. Nobody plays Monopoly, right? Nobody does that auction stuff, even though that makes the game go faster. Calvin Ball is a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Even before video games, we all just make up our own rules.
Yep. So one of the ways that we do play games wrong is we take these pieces that the developers have given us and treat it like a toy. We're doing something they either couldn't, didn't, or chose not to foresee that we would do. This articulates in a couple different ways. There are probably people who are screaming in their head and they're thinking this is emergent gameplay. We're going to talk about that in a moment.
You're probably also screaming, wait a minute, you're taking the game and you're doing something wrong with it, but also speedruns, right? Sequence breaking, glitches, any of those kind of things also fall broadly under this category.
Yes, and we're not going to talk about those in depth. We're not speedrunners.
No.
And I have never successfully performed a glitch in a game. I know there's YouTube channels that I watch, but that's not what we do. So this is going to be a cursory kind of look at this.
The closer version that I've done is a drinking game.
Yeah, can you elaborate on what the specifics of that are? Not in general.
Right,
The drinking games you've done for gaming, not just It all began with the invention of weed. Nothing like that. See?
So somebody came upon some rotten fruit one day.
Yeah.
No.
We stumbled upon a prison toilet. They used to catch up in the back.
So I want to preface this by saying this is not the kind of person that I am, but I've obviously done this, so yes, this is the person that I am. Back in college, I went to college after Wii Sports came out, okay? And had some buddies from high school in, and we were underage drinking like you do, and we had a case of natural ice. Who here has had natural ice? So it is
It's
like
better
beer.
than regular ice.
It's like beer, but plus. It's like canned malt liquor. It's no good. So we decided, because we wanted to get as drunk as quickly as drunk as possible, as quickly as possible. Every time we don't bowl a strike in Wii bowling, well, we'll just drink the entire thing. We didn't finish the game.
He stands before you.
Still,
He did not die.
But like Dark Souls,
Drunk Souls, where you die when you take a drink when you die.
Yeah.
Like I've done that before, and that's obviously not the way it is quote unquote intended.
But it's modifiers, doing something additional with the game, right?
Yes, yeah, doing things outside that system, various forms of playing with the box. That expression means a game or a toy came in a box and the kid plays with the box.
Yep.
Or a cat toy came in a box and the cat goes in the box. We kind of mentioned speedrunning challenge runs. So these are self-imposed challenges. And there are varying degrees of how the kind of intentionality or foreseeableness this has. So something we talked about, we did an episode on Doom 2, and that game, like very early on, made for speedruns. At the end of every level, you get a completion percentage and its speed that you've done that. So it feels very tailored for that. But playing it, without switching weapons is something that the player imposes upon themselves to add fun or challenge, and the alchemy between those things.
Final Fantasy games, either single class challenges, going back to Final Fantasy 1 even, making your own rules on top of that. Sometimes this even changes the course of a series, right? I don't know, did Doom 1 did Doom 1 have the stats at the end of it?
Yeah, it's from Wolfenstein.
Okay. Yeah. But like, Smash Brothers, people, Nintendo saw people were playing it competitively, so they said, well, let's just give them this boring ass mode that has no items and shit.
Yeah. Smash Brothers, so the reason why Smash Brothers is such a perfect game springboard to talk about this is because Smash Brothers is a game that is balanced, but things that unbalance it rain from the sky. Like if you just start playing it, so imagine Mario Kart where just blue shells came down. That's what Smash Brothers is out of the box.
Right.
And instead people have become very good at it and just play it as a very straight-laced fighting game, which is also fine. Like that is an opposite example of people making things more challenging for themselves, making it more simple in order to enjoy it in spite of, is kind of a strong word, but in spite of the developer intentions.
Yeah, and sometimes people find a crack in the gameplay's code becomes a whole new feature later on. Example would be Star Siege Tribes. Originally meant to be a game that was slow, methodical, vehicle-based, things like that. People figured out how to move really, really fast just by skiing, by like taking advantage of the jump physics. Tribes 2 was all about that. They just made a game about that feature.
Yep. There's also kind of a related idea of this, which is easy modes or tourist modes or no death modes, things like that. Playing BioShock with the Vita chambers on as opposed to off, things like that. And we're gonna keep hammering this. Don't let anyone ever tell you that's bad.
Right.
So for people who don't know us, we did a podcast for a long time called Bonfireside Chat, which was kind of like the Dark Souls podcast. And people who know Dark Souls probably know that the community in Dark Souls, many aspects of it are very good. There is a high level of toxicity in that community, and it involves gatekeeping, like get good, you're not, only noobs use a shield, don't summon, you're not really playing if you do this. All of that is nonsense.
Your worth as a person or as a person who plays games is not dependent on whether you play a game in a particular way.
It's not even your worth as a person, your experience playing the game.
Yeah.
So what people who do that, when people tell you there's a right way to play a game that involves challenge, when they say you're not getting an optimal experience, they are operating under the logical fallacy that it is a choice for you between an optimal and a suboptimal experience, when in fact the choice is what they consider to be a suboptimal experience and no experience. Because if you can't do this thing to play the game the way you're going to enjoy it, you're not going to play it. They're being incredibly condescending and patronizing to you, and don't be friends with people who do that. And if people do it online and you see them doing it, tell them to stop.
Yes.
It sucks. And we heard a lot of it because, there's a Dark Souls game we didn't like, and people said that was because we thought it was too hard, and that was dumb. And they were wrong, and I'm here to say it. So emergent gameplay is another kind of word for that. That is a more general term for gameplay that emerges from systems. There's a really good GDC talk from a couple of the guys who made Thief and Deus Ex that talk about this.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that just a little bit here. It's not specifically what we want to talk about as far as doing single-player modes for multiplayer games, but it's worth touching on for a bit.
Yes. Emergent gameplay is a term that contains multitudes. It is descriptive. However, any given person is probably going to describe something different with it. Also, it is going to be used as a back-of-the-box buzzword. So we need to dive in a little bit to what we're talking about when we refer to emergent gameplay.
And a game that is oftentimes used as an example for this, for that kind of first form that is systems-driven is Deus Ex and Deus Ex-likes. That means a lot of your player verbs and kind of your posture and possibility space is defined by these systems interacting in ways that the developers did not necessarily foresee. So a real classic example of that is using lambs, which are the sticky grenades in that. You can climb on those. They don't blow up when you set them, and they actually are an object, so you can climb up the thing. The developers never thought that. There's a great example of, there are little spider bots in the game, and you can dominate them. They gave you this power, bot domination. They thought you would use it to hack security bots. People are using spider bots to blow open doors. If you possess a spider bot, walk it up to the door, unpossess it, and shoot it, it blows up the door. And they were like, this is great. We never foresaw this. This is just the systems working together in a way that is true to the fiction of the world. Is a really good example of that kind.
Yes, that particular kind. The creating an open situation and then just giving you an option for how to approach it.
Yep, and that is a way that is, in kind of a definition, is using those tools to do things that are within the bounding box of the goals of the game. So that is advancing the game, getting through those locks, something you want to do. What most people think about when they think about emergent gameplay, though, is just fucking around. There's a concept on Something Awful, which is the message board where we met, and it is of asshole physics, like, going things like torturing the Roombas in Deus Ex.
Yes, picking up cans and throwing them at the guards in Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 is a physics-based game, just anything like this. Making sure that nothing that was standing up at the beginning of the stage is still standing at the end of it. Making your own games within the games throughout the course of playing.
Some early examples of that kind, even pre-video game that I can think of just personally. When I was younger, me and my cousins, we had action figures, and we had, Crush Tor the Barbarian and Volthar, the Demon Lord and stuff. And all we ever did was set up towns and make them run shops. So it was a grid that we had on the carpet of like Volthar, the clothing demon, and Crush Tar, the insurance barbarian. And we just have them walk up to each other and talk and like haggle. And that was by no means intended with those toys. That's the first time I ever thought about having my own fun outside of the kind of stated intent with this.
Back when I was, because I'm the person who was unstuck in time, I actually did play with the little green army men.
He's younger than I am. So just so you know, like,
well, you just have them and you do that.
You have them. Well, your parents buy you them because you asked for them because you didn't want cooler toys.
I had them. They were around.
No, that's how that works. So around.
They just grew with it around. It's fine. It sucked lining them up against a battle and going. Bah, 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 bah. Like you set up like a MASH unit and just had them like some solve military problems.
I'm familiar with how they're supposed to. I know what green men are.
Youngin, you act like you acted like it.
What was the fun emergent? What's the on-topic way you use those, Cole?
What's that?
What's the on-topic way you use?
Line them up in a row and go.
That's what they're intended to do.
I know.
That's not emergent gameplay.
No, that's the on-topic way to do that.
What would you do?
What did I do? I set them up like it was like we're back at base, like it was Jarhead or something.
Oh, okay.
Like when are we gonna see combat, man? I don't know.
Yeah. Like, for people who've seen Jarhead, that's mostly about military guys betting each other how many times they can masturbate before they get bombs. That's what a lot of that movie is about. That's most of that movie. It's 2 hours. So this kind of like playing with these things outside of that. Another way too, another example real quick, and I wanted to make sure I brought it up. So the Tony Hawk games come with skate park creators. And me and my friends, what we would do is we'd create a rail in the middle of a thing with 2 ramps on either side, and we would joust. You would start from the middle, you go out, you go up the ramp, and then you jump on the rail, and then see who knocked the other person off in the middle. And we always called it jousting because we misspelled it when we named the park. So we'd be like, do we want to play Tony Hawk's Pro Jousting? And that would be the thing we did. But like, arguably inside the bounding box of the rules, but not intended, and we had tons of fun with that.
Yeah, similar one for that. Back in the PlayStation era, playing a Need for Speed game, we tried to do this with most racing games, but Need for Speed was the one that my friends figured out you could do this. 2 people race, all right, you got CPU racers or whatever. One person goes forward on the track, the other person goes backward on the track.
Yeah.
And you try and run into them and stop them from finishing.
I've definitely done that in Mario Kart.
Yeah. It's harder to do that though.
It's harder to do it,
and stuff.
Yeah, and because get
Get
off my face.
Meddling school mark.
Game, please. But this kind of like approach to this can lead to really big things. This is like kind of related, and this is an experimental episode. So when we put these notes together, some of the stuff's out of order, which like this is here in the middle of this because of my fault. But like I think you can make the argument that this is why we have SimCity, right? Like Will Wright played Raid on Bungling Bay, and it was like the creation tools are more fun than playing this dumb game. Who is anyone in this room played Raid on Bungling Bay as a game?
No.
2?
Okay.
So like and then how many people have played SimCity? Right? Like, and it's just like, so that is a form of this is more fun. Let's do this thing, even if it's not the intended way to do it.
Yeah. So, in a lot of these cases, the game's story is irrelevant because the actual story of playing the game is what happens when you're putting it together. Going backwards in Need for Speed, the jousting, like that's the more important jousting. Yes, joustins.
Jousting.
Yeah. But that's what you take away as opposed to anything the developer put into the game.
There's also a way so we said it's outside of the story, there's also an entire field of emergent narrative that we just want to mention. That's what the Sims games are based on. If you talk to anybody who loves The Sims, we did an episode of that for episode 200 over the summer and created our own stories.
Yeah.
And that's, within these systems ways. You can actually create narrative content through this that is unique to you. And that's not something where that is the intended way to play. That's not something that's frowned upon by the community or the developers. But you can, through this emergence, you can get a lot there.
Yeah. Everybody probably has an example that's springing to mind when we talk about messing around and ignoring the main thrust of the game. Probably thinking of Oblivion or Skyrim. The big one for me, and the one that we have in the notes, so that's what I'm going to talk about, is Grand Theft Auto, right? How many people have finished those just overall? Like, not everybody. Most people got that game, any version of it to mess around.
You have to do so much dumb stuff. They're real bad, guys. They're fun to do stuff, but like, man, the missions you actually have to do to beat them, the tedium of like those, shooting. In any of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's extremely bad, but what's really fun is just getting your wanted level up and going on chases, creating these little miniature things, or like, I'm gonna spawn in a tank. Cheats are very related to this as a thing, and they're again intentional, but like I'm gonna have a tank and turn off gravity and then run the tank as the slowest jet that goes around the world and just like runs from stuff blowing up everything you hit.
Yeah.
Super fun, and most people I know play GTA that way.
Yeah.
I probably don't know more than 5 people who beat GTA 3, like actually beat the narrative. Like everyone I knew owned it. No one played it the way it was, the story mode.
For us, everybody got together, like it was in early high school, so we had to like make sure we were in a place where the parents were cool with it. But we just, took turns passing the controller around, seeing how high we could get our star rating before we died. And when we were talking about cheats, something that brought to mind is about spawning and things, like somebody took Grand Theft Auto and saw the cheats built into that and said, hey, Saints Row. Why don't we make a Saints Row, where that's just built into the interface where you can do it. Another side of that, have you read stories about people who play Grand Theft Auto 4 online and role play?
Mm-hmm. Like you role play as the world's best traffic obeyer.
Yes.
And that's a thing, and they're like, in no way, so, we've been using like developer intent, and that's an impossible thing to determine, and it's kind of a nonsense term. We've been using it extremely loosely, and we recognize that, right? So like, it's not outside the possibility that they imagine that would happen. But I think that most people would probably argue that's not the most common way to play the game. It's not how it's marketed. It's not how, if you look at like how power-ups and stuff are used in that game, there's entire systems about not doing that.
Yeah.
Like you are meant to get stars and get wanted levels in the game. There are systems to mitigate that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would argue that's what you're supposed to do. You just can. and people have fun doing that. And that's an example, like as much as I think it's fun to play Dark Souls with Shield, I think that sounds crazy. I would never play a GTA and follow traffic laws.
I do.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, because he's younger than me. I don't actually know if that makes sense. I don't know. I knew it was a callback and it had the cadence of a callback, but I don't actually know if it actually functioned as an insult if you were to diagram it. So, if you guys have comment cards, you guys can let us know.
Did that land for you?
Yeah, just let me know. So specifically, so that's kind of the piece on Emergent gameplay. We didn't talk about all of it. There's tons of it. Specifically, what we want to talk about is playing single-player games, enjoying them, as opposed to enjoying them as training for multiplayer, which is largely the intent. Not always. It kind of varies, but we want to talk about some examples of why we enjoy playing games that way in ways that maybe 8 out of 10 of our peers think is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. So you need to ask yourself, am I playing the game the designer made? Am I playing the game that I want to, or am I playing the game that everybody else is saying you should, the metagame? We have 6 examples. We're going to have to go through them kind of quickly, but just ways that we are weird.
Oh, we have some time.
Oh,
Yeah, it's only been 20 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
So let's really camp out on this. Let's dine on it. So Smash Brothers is obviously the big example. We talked about that early. That's what brought this on to us. So one, there's kind of the intrinsic joy and design that is in the single player mode of those. At the booth that we have set up, we have Subspace Emissary set up for the Wii version of Smash Brothers, which is a fun, varied kind of action platformer.
Yep.
If you play it that way. A lot of people like it. The story is ridiculous and melodramatic, but it is fun, and they put care into those modes. So there is the base level of appreciation.
yes.
Also, Subspace Emissary is a really boring term for that. I feel like that needed an action noun.
Didn't they get a scenario designer from Square Enix to do that?
It's a Final Fantasy guy.
Yeah, okay.
And it's an
There we
emissary.
go.
Black hole ambassador. The comptroller of the stars. It's such a bland phrase.
It just doesn't represent the villain
And I
is
think
Rob.
it's Rob. Yeah, I think Rob is the Subspace Emissary. So yeah, the Smash Historia book is don't buy it. So
but aside from just going through those modes, and every Smash Brothers since the first one has had some way to get to credits, right? There's also just joy in playing these games by yourself, just to see all the stuff in them.
The character expression is how I would put this. So it's like seeing them do these moves in a different context, seeing how they move, seeing how they jump. What did they do to make a character like Peach a combatant? We don't know her in that context. How did they actually solve the problem of putting her in this other context? What does that mean?
Yeah.
That's really fun. It's just really fun to see, and it's fun to see final smashes. Every time one of these games come out, I watch a YouTube. First thing they do is just watch all of the final smashes because I think they're cool.
Yeah.
Some of it's just pretty lights and big sounds, but I think it's neat.
And stuff I recognize. I mean, I'm not made of stone. Nostalgia works on me.
Yeah.
So, and it's great to see how they make them into combatants who balance and fight against each other. I mean, Bowser, he's like the big bad guy you fight once at the end of the game. How do you make Little Mac, who's just a dude with childbearing hips?
Yeah.
So,
It's been a minute since you looked at Little Mac's body.
Yeah, he's Calipigian.
Yeah, it's great. Zopti.
Yeah, and also just absurd situations.
Yeah, so if you watch the trailers for Smash Brothers games, they bank on this.
Yes.
The trailers are all just silly stuff happening, right? So the most recent one that I saw, which was Luigi getting just wrecked and killed by Castlevania enemies, that's just absurd, right? You take these cartoony characters. There's a lot of pleasure in that, and that can happen in the gameplay as well. Seeing Mario, pick up a bazooka off the ground and blast his Lord Regent in the face as an Antifa super soldier, where direct action works, and he just takes a bazooka and just, that's it, and that's really kind of fun and funny.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these small pleasures, is that a knee slapper? Am I gonna, stay up from laughing from that? No, but it's cute.
It accumulates, right?
Yep, super cute.
Yeah. Also, the unlock cycle. There's a bit of a gachapon, loot box, gambling idea to this as well. Like, one of the reasons I like Subspace Emissary, like, rather than just sitting down and looking at a grid of characters and probably picking somebody familiar, it forces you to pick up different characters and play with them, you know, in different scenarios to learn them and get used to them.
Yeah. And even just the unlock in any of the Smash Brothers games, like just getting a dopamine of getting a new thing,
Yeah.
the stage, background music, character, that feels really good. And even just trophies, you know, in those games, which is just, you get a little bit of trivia, you get to spin a little thing around, fun to see.
Yeah.
What this means is playing this, something we talk about a lot on the show that is related to this is the idea of a perpetual game versus a non-perpetual game. For me, Smash Brothers games are games that I play for 20 hours or 10 hours and I never play again.
Right.
It's not a perpetual game like a Counter-Strike or any kind of fighting game where you're just going to play it time after time after time. And that's also okay. I never felt like I was not getting appropriate value from these games because I played them once.
Yes. Because there's a unit of playing Smash Brothers that you're just going to repeat over and over again, the match, right? And you're going to enjoy that on some level, even if you don't have a standing appointment to go to a place and play with a bunch of people. It's cool if you have that and you want to play tournaments, but like you can engage with it.
It's super great. Like it's a different kind of experience.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of contains both.
Yes.
Goldeneye is the example you have here, but this also applies to almost every shooter.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a back in the day example, obviously, because I'm talking about an older game, but this is actually a very not treasured memory. That's a really sappy way to say that. It was a cool way that I spent time with my dad. So, you know, on consoles, everybody recognizes GoldenEye. You're probably one of your first experiences with a multiplayer first-person shooter, right? Lots of characters, you know, lots of rules built into it, house rules, you know, how many people said, no, you can't pick Odd Job. So you picked Boris because he was also a tiny guy, but not like ridiculously tiny. Things like that. But most of the time that I personally spent playing GoldenEye was not spent like playing the multiplayer, you know, going around facility or, you know, what have you. It was actually spent turning the single player experience into a multiplayer experience. This probably happened at some point when we just had one controller when I went over to my dad's. And so we said, well, let's just play the first level, and they give you those stats at the end. Well, how do we gauge who did better? Well, let's play for headshots this time. Let's play for time this time. Let's play for damage done this time.
Which is really interesting because it's a competitive mode that is done through the single player like experience.
Yeah, so we would just run through, write down all the notes, and then hooray, we won. It was like playing darts.
What's really interesting about GoldenEye too, I didn't think about this in the notes, but it doesn't have that character appeal that Smash Brothers does. Like, I don't feel like the target audience for it was like, yeah, like, here's this obscure character from, you know, You Only Live Twice.
Scaramanga!
Yeah, Scaramanga. Like, all those Scaramangiacs out there who are just like going apeshit for Scaramanga. Like, I don't know if that happened. It's a real weird game for that. Like, you get to play as a lot of people you don't care about. And bad images of them. Even if you'd seen GoldenEye at the time, which is like a pretty boring Bond movie. Like, this wasn't an exciting, this is pre-Craig, so it's pretty bland. It's pretty weird. I don't know. That's all I got for that. I was just thinking about how it's weird. Like, hey kids. Maybe it's like a dad thing. Maybe it's just you know, because dads eat that stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, maybe it's for dads. Could have been for dad. And that holds true for you.
Yeah, no, it was me. It was my dad. It was my uncle. Yeah, we had a good time.
Uncles are a different kind of dad.
Yes.
It's like squares and rectangles.
It's diet dad.
Yeah, diet
dad.
Like some kind of step or lesser dad.
Yeah, but so yeah, just like with Smash Brothers, we played single player in a multiplayer focused game. Well, here took a single player mode and made a multiplayer.
Yeah. Something that is more akin to my heart, this is something I do now even, is Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 are games that I absolutely love and I never want to play against a stranger in my entire life. I had a really bad experience trying to play those as intended online with matchmaking, and it was a codification of what we're talking about here that sucks, because I would get on a team and I would do my best, and I would get somebody with sometimes with a slur in their name yelling at me and saying, "You always go smoker, hunter, spitter. You never go spitter, hunter, jockey." And if you're just starting those words, that's just word salad. And why? Like, why do I always do it that way? And if I go that, what does that mean? And what am I doing? That doesn't make any sense.
Notwithstanding the fact that they kind of made the entire game to be adaptive, no matter which way you did it.
Well, it's supposed to be, but there's definitely then I later got into competitive Left 4 Dead. Now I know.
What you hate most?
I don't play it, I just watch it. I know why though, why you always go. But at the time, it was just a bad way to treat people. And it just pushed me into the single player. And the single player in those games is super fun. Not least of which, because Valve is extremely good at like lore and world building and level design, and you can't really appreciate 2 of those 3 things if you're playing multiplayer. They put all these notes and things. There is kind of a cool story in Left 4 Dead across those 2 games. You don't get that playing multiplayer. If you're the guy in the room reading all of the graffiti and everyone else is ready to go, you're going to get kicked, and you're going to get slurs.
Yeah,
put at you.
Yeah, you're the person standing in the middle of the sidewalk looking up at the buildings.
Yeah, exactly. You're a tourist, essentially. And playing the single player allows you to be a tourist, which I found very satisfying. It also allows you to play in an arcadey kind of way. I had a lot of fun seeing how high I can make the difficulty. It's single player, the AI is not very good. What is this like as almost like a 3D Robotron? A bunch of things that die in one hit that are rushing me from all angles as I try to make checkpoints. And it works that way. It is a tremendously fun thing to do, and I've played through all of those games many, many times that way. It's also a really good, the most frequent way I play it now is as kind of like a 2-player, something to do with your hands and chat with a buddy game, and we play co-op, which is 2 players out of the 8 possible, and it's easy, and we just talk about our days and our feelings, and shoot zombies at the same time, and it's incredibly meditative and relaxing. Which is not a way that game I feel like is intended to be played.
Explicitly not. Yeah. It's a horror game.
Yeah.
I can eat your face, huh?
And they do.
And so they did.
And it happened.
Yeah. So that's funny talking about using Left 4 Dead as kind of a social. And I know that you play with your buddy from back home, right? Just to catch up and spend the day. For me, that was what EverQuest was. Lots of contempt, like,
concerned large noises. Mention of EverQuest.
So I've played a handful of MMOs, over time, and I've always treated them as a single player experience. People who pick up an MMO now, like, they accommodate for this. You can play through a bunch of WoW. I mean, as Rift, like, you can play a bunch of WoW, like, to the level cap by yourself, right? People even say, like, oh, this game doesn't start until you're at the level cap and you're getting your gear and you're doing the raids. No, for me, the game started by finding this big empty place and going to look and see what kind of crazy ways I could die there. Specifically, back in EverQuest, so I wasn't a guild, but it was more just a chat room with some people that I jived with, and this was before, it's back like 2001, 2002, something like that. And I recognized the feeling right away when I picked up Morrowind, actually. It's like, oh, I was just playing Morrowind before there was Morrowind because I was trying to cross Antonica in EverQuest, going from Freeport to Kinos and back and all that, right? Yeah,
yes.
Words.
Yeah. He talks about EverQuest a lot, and I haven't learned one thing about it yet.
I read that book of EverQuest.
Yeah, I bought you a book about it, but I didn't read it. And then also I played it for a little while, but I also somehow didn't actually look at it or read any words when I did it. So I don't know what an Antachus is. I don't know what those are.
You never rated against Luke and Delir to get your Soulfire Blade?
No, it's,
Jeez.
Those definitely sound like, that has the cadence of it.
It sounds like fantasy stuff, Surplus Wise and all of that.
That sounds like a quest that continues.
So the downside of this was there was just a bunch of stuff that I didn't get to see because most expansions, if they weren't meant to be like a restart, giving you a new class or a new race, didn't give you low to mid-level content. But for me, most MMOs sang when I was at that mid-level. So I would play, get to that, go see something new, play a new class, and then start something else. People call that all-itis. I just call that, I want to play Morrowind, but with like marginally more interaction.
Yeah, and marginally worse lore, story, mechanics.
Dude, I agree that Morrowind is really good.
I know, I'm just like, I don't even think Morrowind's that good though. I just think I just wanted to take a cheap shot at EverQuest.
I'm younger than you.
Yeah, he's younger than me. They're aristocrats. So it's kind of a cheat entry I have here, but it's true, is I had a realization that Starcraft is one of my favorite video game series, and I never want to play that against another person ever in my life. Not for a million years. And part of it is just that Call of Duty. What's that other one that people shoot each other in? They're real good at.
Battlefield.
No, it's a Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you didn't grow up playing Counter-Strike, you can't play Counter-Strike because it's immediately like a sit down and watch other people play simulator as you immediately get shot in the head.
The way to be good at Counter-Strike is to always have been playing Counter-Strike.
You have to Bill and Ted yourself. I know. You have to go back and Bill and Ted and say, I've already done this. So it's kind of a cheat because Blizzard puts a lot of work into their single player experiences, especially in the second one, but there were still ways that I was playing the game that was not necessarily the intended experience. So one of the ways would be to test tactics that were clever but not effective, that I would never use, really. So seeing how different units work together. I have access to this science unit. How far can I get with just science units? I can just poison things. Can I beat this map like that? That's kind of challenge modes, but just seeing like once I add this unit in, what happens? Treating that as kind of a toy box and playing with those designs and seeing how they interface. And then also, weirdly enough, and this is more true of Warcraft games, like when I say Starcraft in my series, I mean all the Blizzard RTSs. I found it immensely fun to build bases. Just organizing an area, especially in Warcraft where they had roads and walls. Putting on the sheet and making my dream orc village, putting on the extra money was super fun for me, like in a SimCity sense. And I would never actually go kill the humans and never make the big demon ball of murder to go like kill them. It was just super fun to do so within this different milieu, like a fantasy SimCity.
Yeah, this is an area where I feel like a little bit of a gatekeeping kind of person. So back in the day, playing the original Starcraft, by the time I got into it, most of the games that you saw were on that one boring map that was like 9 bases around the edge and then like the fracas in the middle there. And everybody played NR15. No rush 15 minutes, guys. If you send anything over, look for somebody within 15 minutes, you're done, I'm gonna quit. You're like, no, I'm playing as Zerg. I need to the early game is great. I can't let you build up. You're a Protoss. Come on.
Yeah, that's a good example of players putting in rules that are against like the actual literal balance of the game.
Yeah.
Like in the name of playing that in a more balanced, competitive way, they're actually unbalancing it like hugely.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We have about 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
So let's scoot through these and get to our closing.
Yes. So mine is also a little bit of a cheat because I can't believe, I would not believe that Bungie didn't intend to do this. For me, Halo 3, okay? We don't talk about it a lot. I want to say I'm not this kind of person, but I am. We've never covered it on the show.
I've never played a Halo game, I don't know it.
Yeah, they're fine. Played a lot of Halo back in the day, back in high school. And so, played a lot of that. Less Halo 2. Halo 3 for me was entirely Forge mode. Because it was a way to recreate stuff that I did in Halo 1. Like playing Floor is Lava, trying to keep the Warthog cart things in the air with rocket launcher blasts, stuff like that. Forge mode, this was intended as a map customizer. So you could, when you're walking around as a player in these multiplayer maps, and you could turn into like a little drone, spawn things in, and say like, okay, I want to put this weapon here. It was just a way to make variants. Like by that time, they had embraced, just lots of mutators and things like that. You could do this collaboratively. You could have multiple people in there turning into these drones in turn. These drones had godlike powers, and they could pick anything up. So guess what we did? We turned into drones and we played catch.
It's the simplest game in the world.
Yes. By just picking up vehicles and throwing it, can you catch it before it lands? Stuff like that. It was just the most childlike thing. Playing catch, playing keep away, playing tag with this stuff, just as godlike robots that could fly around and clip through stuff, right? I imagine this is what Gary's mod is. I've never played Gary's mod, but I imagine I'm getting nods, so yes.
Yeah. So just kind of wrapping up, and before we kind of just say our final piece about why it's okay for you to have the fun that you have. There's lots of reasons why people do this. Might do this. One thing is age. A lot of these modes work for kids. So I guess ask yourself if you're ever inclined to gatekeep or say that somebody's playing a game wrong or this is dumb. Think about these things, right? So one of these things is for kids. Kids are better at playing catch than they are at playing super tactical Halo. That's just kind of evident. For us, I think it's both just individual tastes.
Yeah.
Neither of us have time through the nature of our work and also our just kind of our inclinations to play a perpetual game and master it. Who has time to get extremely good at Counter-Strike? I don't. And I'm more interested in challenging myself or or sometimes just not having a challenging experience and being entertained for a brief time, like a popcorn movie, even if a game is not necessarily made for that.
Yeah. In the notes here, I have this listed as social problems. This could go either way. Either you don't like arranging a time to play with other people, or like you genuinely have an anxiety about being, on the hook with somebody else, right?
Or strangers suck.
Yeah, strangers suck.
All
Yes.
those people who are yelling at
You all are great.
Yeah, you strangers, you're something good one. I've told this before on shows, but I'll say it again just because it's appropriate. So I don't play MMOs. I don't like them. I don't like interacting with strangers. I played City of Heroes for a while, and I got to like the early mid-level, and I was a character called the Golem. And the Golem had rock powers, because I like superheroes, and I was taking it seriously. And I got to a part you needed to join a group. So I did the little emote for looking for group, and I got added to a group with a guy named the Bong Doctor and the Fart Shaman, no joke. And then we went to the city, and I walked and I turned a corner and fell into a lava pit, and they all called me the homophobic F word and said I was foolish for falling in the lava. And I uninstalled it, and I will never play another MMO again because strangers suck. Like, it sucks. Like, don't open yourself up to bad strangers online because they're bad. The internet is full of bad men. So it is but yeah, so maybe you just don't want to deal with that. Like, and it wasn't, it's not that I couldn't, right? I stood here today. Many years of therapy got me over that. But it just, who wants to? Like, it wasn't fun. And I'm playing a video game. Like, it's not, it's not for that. And then, as we mentioned a little bit, those harsh learning curves, like coming into it's like arriving at a party where everyone's already drunk and you haven't had a drink, is what it's like to play Call of Duty multiplayer.
Right.
Now, if I just pick that up and try to play it, like, I'm always playing catch up. I'm a burden to my team. That's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
And just, I'm going to spend a lot of time spectating, and that's just not super fun.
Yeah.
So I guess like the thesis of this is that fun you have is real if you have it. And don't let anyone tell you it's not.
Yeah, and look for opportunities to find and make your own fun, because playing with bots is cool, should be allowed, and it's rewarding.
Yeah, and of course it is allowed. Nobody actually comes into your room, but a lot of this is coming from online spaces. So like, if you go online and want to learn about a game you're really excited about, like if I go on Starcraft forums and talk about this, like there's a chance that, like, depending on how well moderated it is, people are going to be a jerk about it, and that's just so silly. Like, that makes no sense. We have just like a couple minutes left. Does anybody have a real killer emergent gameplay or related story? All right. We only have a couple minutes, so everybody, like, cliff notes for both of you guys.
Super fast. I've played Magic the Gathering in the past. There's a variant of the game that's called Highlander, where you only have one of each type of card, aside from basic lands. And Canadian Sketch Comedy Group Loading Ready Run, they found at their local dollar store, they were selling a whole bunch of Magic the Gathering cards, like $1, but booster packs. Like, hey, let's build Highlander decks using $1 dollar store. God knows what's in these.
Oh yeah. Like found limited resources.
It was awesome.
Nice.
So as I was playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, I got the Alien Hood and decided my quest would be this masked hero that nobody knows the name of. And then I found chickens and started becoming the chicken god.
Yeah. Like role-playing in a non-role-playing game that doesn't actually offer a whole lot of choices is a huge example of this. And incredibly fun.
My brother and I, when we were playing 007 Nightfire, we would always play security guard, where one of us would patrol around a specific part of the map, and someone would try, and the other person would try to get past us.
So you made a stealth game out of it. You made a thief out of it. That's awesome. And back with
those, what is it, Halo people are making movies and things, the machinima stuff.
Machinima,
all the RPGs that do that.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about machinima. That's another really great way of like an art form that has emerged from this.
Yeah.
Actually, with chess, there's fairy chess that goes back really like centuries, where like different rules and different rules for the pieces when people were inventing new kinds of chess, like early on in the history of chess.
Nice.
When I was younger, I played Stratego by myself. I don't remember how I did it, but I came up with a single-player Stratego variant as a very, very sad, like lonely kid.
You just got ran out of steam there.
Yeah, no, I had a memory. Yeah, something unlocked.
Real quick, when you play any walking sim like Gone Home or Layers of Fear or whatever, do you close all the doors and drawers behind you and turn off the lights?
I don't actually. But part of that, that's strategic because I want to know where I've been.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so in case like a room looks the same, and that's not necessarily on the developer, like maybe they do a great job of keeping the rooms differently, but I played somewhere they don't.
Oh, yeah.
So I do that just to make sure I know where I've been.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a noted example. Like, I'm actually this person. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're about time with that.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
So if it was bad, we apologize. If it was good, let us know, and maybe we'll do it again. Regular show's not going anywhere. And for people who don't know us, you can find our work at duckfeed.tv, that we have all of our podcasts. And we're listener supported. The reason why we're able to do live shows is because of patreon.com/duckfeedtv. Pays for airfare and travel and food and our booth and all of that stuff. So we have a booth right next to the women's room in the corner. We didn't choose that. We didn't mark a box that's like, yeah, we're creeps. Lay it on us. We didn't do that. So when we are there, please come see us. We'll be there all day tomorrow. And we're doing a meetup tonight.
Yeah.
8:45 at Porter World. Come play some arcade games with us.
Yeah. Andy Kaufman, let's go. There's